Good morning. That's great, thank you. Well, the conference has been going great. We've got about another half day. I got to tell you, and I know the Secretary and General Goldfein agree with me, I spent 44 years in the Air Force, and I can't think of a better professional development opportunity than you all have had here this week. So I really appreciate you all being here. I'll tell you what, we really want you to be a part of AFA. And so this one-time good-only deal, when we get done with this session, if you will go out to the AFA membership booth and tell them Larry sent you, we will sell you a membership for 1 year, an e-membership for 1 year for $15. $15. So I'll be watching the big crowd go toward the membership booth after this great presentation is over. Most of you know that I was initially enlisted for 8 years. And I got to tell you, it was some of the best 8 years of my life. My first assignment was Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina. And I got to tell you about my first day at Pope. So now we have very elaborate programs to welcome new airmen into a base. You know, you come into a base, your supervisor meets you, people let you know before you get there how everything is going to work. I got to tell you, when I came in the Air Force, now I'm not quite as old as General Goldfein, but when I came in the Air Force, we didn't have these elaborate programs. And so when I went down to Pope Air Force Base, nobody met me. And I got there on a weekend, and I got off a Greyhound bus. It was the wintertime. I had my service dress uniform on, my one stripe. I had the big horse blanket coat, and I had my green duffel bag. And I went out to the base, and it was at night, and this was the good old days. So there was a CBPO, there was a charge of quarters, and so they sent me to the dorm. And to make a long story short, I got up the next morning, and I was headed toward the chow hall. And a Chief Master Sergeant, who obviously knew I was a deer in the headlights, yelled out to me as I was walking toward the chow hall. He said, "Airmen." And I turned around and I noticed it was a Chief Master Sergeant. Now in those days, I don't know how it is now, I did what all other airmen did when the Chief Master Sergeant called him. I turned around and hit it in the other direction. And that Chief Master Sergeant yelled out to me again, "Airmen, don't you walk away from me." And so I had no choice. So I put my duffel bag down, I straightened up my service dress and my horse blanket, and I walked over to this chief, fresh out of basic training, and I saluted and I reported as ordered. And so the chief said, "Look, you don't have to worry about that." But he asked me why I was here, you know, where I was going to work. And this Chief Master Sergeant, by the way, I don't know if this is still true. Every Chief Master Sergeant I've ever had owns a pickup truck. I don't know if that's still true. But this Chief Master Sergeant put me in his pickup truck. He threw my duffel bag on the back, and he took me to the dining hall. He actually sat down and had breakfast with me, talked to me about the Air Force, talked to me about Pope Air Force Base, talked to me about the wing. He then took me to my first squadron. And that Chief Master Sergeant got me off on the right foot. Now, ironically enough, I left Pope, went on to other assignments. I went overseas. I came back to a different base because that Chief Master Sergeant said, "You know, while you're here, you ought to start going to college and take some college courses." And so I did that. And when I came back to Pope the second time, I finished my degree, and I was going to get out of the Air Force. And this Chief Master Sergeant told me, because he had come back to Pope, "You know, you ought to think about going to officers training school." And I said, "No, I don't want to be an officer. The enlisted folks run the Air Force," which is true, still true. "But no, I think I'm going to get out." And he said, "No, you really ought to think about officers training." And so he set me down, walked me through the process. He wrote a letter of recommendation for me. He then called our Chief Master Sergeant that we had in the Pentagon running the comptroller assignments, got a letter of recommendation from him. He then called our 3-star comptroller in the Pentagon and got a letter of recommendation from him. And this Chief Master Sergeant got me an OTS. That's what Chief Master Sergeants do. That's what our enlisted force does. That's who takes care of our troops, our Chief Master Sergeants. And I got to tell you, I'll never forget that Chief Master Sergeant calling out to me when I was trying to figure my way out around the base. By the way, I was scared of Chief Master Sergeants then, and I'm scared of them today. But you all know, and I all know, that we have a great Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Chief Wright stands out amongst giants in our Air Force, our enlisted folks. They flock to him. He's a rock star. I see him on Facebook all the time. This guy is taking care of our enlisted force just like his predecessors did, which is so crucial to our Air Force. But that's what Chief Master Sergeants do. They take care of people. And a Chief Master Sergeant took care of me. So Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Kaleth Wright, takes care of Air Force Airmen and their families. Ladies and gentlemen, the 18th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Kaleth Wright.
All right, sir. Thank you. All right, appreciate it. Yeah. All right, good morning, AFA. Good morning. To whom do I owe the pleasure of thanking for putting me on the schedule after Secretary/General James, now known as Chaos Mattis? You want to see some chaos? Wait till I get my hands on whomever that is. I might have to pull a, hey, Airmen, right? So I don't have a pickup truck, General Spencer, and I don't have $15, so if somebody could get my membership for me, that'd be great. So man, you know, the secretary came out and he waved all this raw meat. I saw General Everhart in the bathroom putting on face paint. I thought I saw a C-130 land out in the front. So what I actually need you guys to do is unfix your bayonets, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our airmen. So let me start with just saying welcome to a few folks. And the very first person I'd like to say welcome to is my beautiful wife, my teammate. You know, leadership, success is a team sport. And I could not do without what I do without Tanya, so I appreciate it. Just like I tell you just about every time I get up on the stage, she keeps me squared away. She keeps me honest, and she'll get on me about walking this stage because I'll be kicking, I'll practice my golf swing, I'll rub some holes in the carpet or a couple other things, but she always lets me know what I need to do better. So thank you so much. I love you. I also want to welcome, and General Goldfein did a good job yesterday. I think he referred to it as the Big Five. I'm going to refer to it as the Fab Five. And so it's great to have our Secretary Wilson, General Goldfein, and Ms. Dawn, a great teammate. I mean, man, it's amazing even for me as a Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. It's like going into a leadership lab. Every opportunity I get to sit with them and just watch them. This morning, we got to sit with some of our industry partners and just watching how they do business, how they interact, whether it's industry partners, general officers, senior officials, or airmen. It's just a joy to see, and I'm glad to be a part of this team, so thank you. I also want to welcome our Undersecretary and our Vice Chief. I didn't see him here this. Okay, down in the hurricane. All right, good. But again, I enjoy working with the both of them. Our former secretaries, I don't know if we have any still here today, and our former chiefs of staff, welcome. Special welcome to our former Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force, my predecessors, the gentlemen who laid the groundwork, who continue to mentor me today as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of our office, your office of the Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force. And so I want to I want to again say a special welcome to our Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, number 12, Eric Binkin. I don't see him right now, but I believe Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, number 13, Jim Finch, is either here or he'll be here. So welcome, Chief. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, number 14, Gerald Murray. And Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, number 16, Jim Roy and his wife, Paula, Miss Paula, as we all know her. I'd like to say welcome to our 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year, who I had the pleasure, Tanya and I had the pleasure of hosting this weekend and spending some time with. Man, what a rowdy bunch. This is, man, and they are sharp, and obviously to be selected for this award, but welcome and thank you so much for what you've done for us. And then finally, let me say welcome to all of our AFA attendees. It's such an honor to see so many of our airmen, so many of our commanders, so many of our chiefs that took the time to bring your teammates, your award winners, your airmen to come out here and enjoy this professional development opportunity. So welcome to you all. So not only do I want to say welcome to some folks, but I like starting off by saying thank you to quite a few people as well. So I want to take you back. I'm not sure if everybody was here when the conference first started, but I want to take you back to really one of the great things that we get to do at these conferences, back to the very beginning at the award ceremony. And at the opening ceremony, we gave out, it seemed like a ton of awards, certainly all deserving. And we started with the Joan Orr Spouse of the Year. And so let me say thank you to Mrs. Barnett for what she does for all of our airmen. And thank you to all of the spouses and family members that are here today, and all of your spouses and family members that support you as well. We also, if you noticed during the awards presentations, there were a lot of civilians. And so I want to say thank you to all of our civilians that are here and all of the civilians that help our Air Force do exactly what we do. There were certainly almost all the awards, it seemed like, were team-oriented. So let me say thank you to all of the teams. And I also want to say thank you to my teammates. And that's all of my peers, the MAJCOM command chiefs. We have a couple of combatant command senior enlisted leaders. I've seen a ton of wing command chief, numbered Air Force command chiefs, and chiefs in general. So thank you for being great teammates to me. Many of the awards centered around leadership. So let me say thank you to the Air Force leadership, the MAJCOM commanders, all of the other commanders and leaders, squadron commanders that are here today. Again, it's just been a blessing. Now let me take you to, I believe it was that same evening, Monday night, where we recognized some pioneers. Where we saw Mrs. Otto, 98 years old, I believe she is, the longest serving Rosie the Riveter. Man, she is sharp. She is sharp. So I want to say thank you to her for retiring at 95. Man, that is just amazing. And also thank you to all the pioneers, all of our veterans, all of our folks who have served before us. One of the things that I really noticed, that really struck me about the award ceremony is the diversity, and not the individuals who came up. Certainly there was diversity in that, but what really struck me was the diversity in the mission sets that they were being recognized for. So as these people came across the stage, I saw people from air, space, and cyber superiority. There were certainly individuals who were recognized for rapid global mobility. There were folks who were recognized for our global strike missions. There were folks who were recognized in ISR and in command and control. So all things that we do as an Air Force were represented. Now let me paint a picture for you that actually the Secretary and the Chief really helped paint over the past couple of days. Think about these 5 core missions that all these airmen were recognized for the other day. And then think about what the Secretary has laid out for us, the Secretary and the Chief has laid out for us as our priorities going forward as we cost effectively modernize, we innovate for the future, we develop leaders, we build our partnerships and alliances. Lay that against what General Goldfein had already kind of laid in for us with revitalizing the squadrons, developing joint leaders. And I think it used to be MDC2, multi-domain command and control, but now, how do you say it again, sir? Still that, multi-domain command and control. So if you take all that together, what do you see as the common theme? Yeah, our airmen. Our airmen. And so that's really what I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you today about is our airmen. How do we continue to make them resilient? How do we continue to build them as leaders? And how do we continue to make sure they get the training they need and the training that they deserve? Let me just kind of begin with my philosophy about what I believe my role is in helping make our airmen as strong as they can be. So the General and the Secretary kind of talks about taking swings with this axe at the trunk of the tree, right? So we understand we can't cut the whole tree down at one time, just like we understand we can't reform our entire system as much as I would sometimes like to just throw a grenade into some of our processes and programs, blow it up and start from the beginning. I certainly understand we can't do that. So we'll continue to operate the same way. The chiefs and I, we want to take as many things off your plate as possible. We want to make sure that you have time to train, to take care of mission, you have time to take care of each other, and then you have time to take care of your families. So just for a few minutes, I want to talk about some of the things that we'd like to do, continue to do, to give you more time back. More time back for training, more time back for mission, more time back for taking care of each other. So you saw back in July, I believe it was, we rolled out how as we reformed our enlisted professional military education system. So I thought that was a big win. We got a lot of positive feedback. Somebody asked about it the other day. And so we'll continue to work on that. We'll continue to make that the best system that we can. We also would like to work on our enlisted evaluation system. Now, we just recently changed it. I really like the core of it. We got a brief from General Edwards yesterday about the promotion board and some of the challenges with our enlisted evaluation system, but I like the core of it. There's one place, and you've probably heard about this through the rumor mill, our A1C EPR. So we spend a lot of time on these EPRs. We've worked with AFPC and A1 to essentially remove this as a requirement for A1Cs to receive just that first EPR. This will certainly relieve a lot of the burden in the training environment for airmen that are still in training, who we have to produce a ton of EPRs, and even in some of your squadrons, certainly in the maintenance squadrons. I think this will be able to buy you some time back. We have just a little bit more study to do on this one, but again, I think we'll get there pretty soon. Both the Chief and the Secretary talked about the importance of continuing to reduce the amount of CBTs and additional duties, so I'll continue working with them and hacking away at those. The bottom picture you see is an award ceremony, and it just so happens that one of our 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year, Mike Stevens, is in that picture. But really what we're doing in this area is right now the 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year program requires each of you to submit a 1206 with about 27 bullets, 27 lines worth of stuff. So we're going to reduce that down to about 16 lines, 12 in leadership and job performance, and then the other 4 in the whole airman concept. And I think, again, this is all designed to help buy you some time back. I've asked all of our functional, I'm not sure if we have any career field managers here, but I've asked all of our functional communities to do the same thing. Let's reduce some of the, number one, the number of awards that you have, and number 2, the number of lines that we require. So these are small things, right? So in and of themselves, they seem like small change, but again, we'll continue to take these small things away from you so that you can focus on what's important, and that's the mission. Now, Since this is our 70th anniversary and the theme of this is breaking barriers, I do want to talk a little bit about just two things where we've broken some barriers, and that's our enlisted RPA pilots. And so this is our second round of enlisted RPA pilots. They have just a couple of weeks ago, I got a chance to spend a little bit of time with them. They finished their undergraduate pilot training. They're doing their initial flying training down at Holloman now, and then they'll be off to Beale to start working on their weapon system, the RQ-4. So just an amazing accomplishment. The young lady in the photo, for security reasons, we're actually not allowed to mention the names in a setting like this, but the young lady in the photo was actually the distinguished graduate of her class. So I would say that this beta test, this process is going very, very well, like we've heard General Goldfein talk about. So I'm extremely proud of them. I'm really looking forward to them joining the first class, 3 individuals who are already at Beale steeped in their training. So this is a great news story. Second barrier I would say that we broke this year in 2017 is we graduated the first 4 chiefs from Air War College, in residence Air War College. And this was certainly a big deal. And what I really like about talking about this now is I believe all 4 of those chiefs are here. So if Chief Mitchell, Chief Johnson, Chief Crowder, and Chief Vincent, are you in the room? Yeah, get up before don't make me get the secretary on you. Yeah, so this is a great opportunity. You know, I actually talked to General Kofelt, the previous commandant of Air War College, and he gave me some feedback that he received a lot of great feedback, not only from the chiefs, but from the officers, the senior officers in those seminars that were able to receive some of the mentorship and some of the perspective from our chiefs that we put in that class. So great story, and congratulations to you all. Again, all of them have went on now, and they are sitting command chiefs. So we're looking forward to a lot of great things from each one of those individuals. One of the things that people always ask me is, hey, Chief, you know, what can I do? What can I do to help you? What can I do to make it better for you? So let's, again, you remember I mentioned that leadership, that success is a team sport. So first, let me talk about what I believe my role is, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I think your role is and how we make our Air Force better and continue to prepare our airmen. So first and foremost, my role is to continue doing exactly what I've been doing since I've been in the seat, and that's to listen. I heard General Goldfein say yesterday that he wanted to squint with his ears. It may have been you, it may have been the secretary, but man, that's my exact philosophy. I'm going to continue to squint with my ears. You tell me what we need to fix in this Air Force, and I'll give you typically 3 responses. There's a time, and this is the response that I like the best. You know what? You're exactly right. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's fix it. There's a time when I say, you know what? It may not make a lot of sense to you, but let me give you a much broader perspective. Let's step back for a minute and let me help you understand why we do it. And then there's a time, sadly, I won't say sadly, appropriately, that I have to say, you know what? You're right, it sucks, but let's keep our heads high and get after it. I want to minimize the amount of time that I have to say that, and I want to maximize the amount of times that I say, man, you're right, that's a great idea, let's get somebody fixing it. So my job, I'll continue to listen. I'll continue to make sure that you have the resources that you need. I'll continue to work with our chiefs and our senior leaders to do everything that we can to remove barriers, to give you the authority, again, the resources, manpower that you need to be successful. Let's talk about your role. So recently I was in, anybody ever seen this picture? You know where this is? Do you know where this picture is from? So I was recently sitting on a board, chairing a board at the Pentagon Library. And so if you've ever been to the Pentagon Library, as you walk right through the front door and you go down the escalator, I just happened to look up to my right and I saw this picture. I wasn't intrigued much by the photo, even though I love it showing all of our joint airmen, but I was very intrigued by the words at the bottom. Arm yourself with knowledge, practice virtue, and serve the people. I think this aligns very nicely with our core values. I think if we're going to take care of airmen, it's imperative that we continue to grow as individuals. Like I always tell you, I can't pour into your cup if I don't have anything in mine. There is no limit for us when it comes to learning. There is no limit for us when it comes to encouraging and mentoring and inspiring. So always continue to arm yourself with knowledge so that you can be a great mentor for our airmen who so richly deserve it. Practice virtue, moral excellence. Our core values guide us. They tell us how we should be. I've talked to you before about the importance of character. And how one of my bosses, who I believe is here, always talked to us about, hey, talent is interesting, character is everything. Serve the people. Especially, this is for all of us, but especially if you're a non-commissioned officer. Why do you think I say that? Because it's in your title. It's in my title. It's still the most important word in my title. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Latin for to serve, loosely translated as to serve. This is why we exist. To build the leaders, to build the airmen of tomorrow. Here's another, since I don't have any stakes like the SecDef, I'm just going to keep dropping these little kibbles and bits and hope you guys are satisfied. Here's another charge for you. You got to commit. You got to commit to this Air Force. You have to commit to these airmen. Now, that doesn't mean that all of us have to say, yep, I'm ready to serve for the next 20 or 30 years. I got it. But if you're not ready to say that, what you need to be ready to say is every morning when you wake up, I'm going to commit today to being the best leader that I can be for these airmen. All too often in my travels and throughout my career, I encounter airmen who were once like me. Right? So I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I've been in this place, in the place that many of you have been in several times. I've encountered too many airmen who were once like me. I want to be, I kind of like it, but I don't like my supervisor. Well, I want to serve, but I don't like being at this base. I mean, I'm still trying to decide whether I want to, if I had more time, then I'd do more mentoring. If we had more of this, I would, why, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. In this Air Force, you have two choices. You can be in or you can be out. That's it. There's no in between. The American people, that's what they expect. Your leadership, that's what they expect. Your airmen, that's what they expect. As I look over here and I see Mrs. O'Connell and Mr. Moore and Colonel Retired Artiega, the parents of 3 of our outstanding Airmen of the Year, that's what they expect. So I need you to do some soul searching. Are you in or are you out? Are you going to be committed to this Air Force? Are you going to be committed to these airmen or not? There's no room for waffling. Again, I got it. I'm not asking you to sign your life away for the next 20 years. That's up to you and your family to figure out long term. But every single day when you walk in your office or work center, you have to be committed. You have to be committed to them. You also have to be committed to your family. All too often, I fail to find the right balance between taking care of our airmen, and taking care of my family. Normally I have some 210-5-7 or some tricky, catchy thing that I've learned that I'll pass along to you and tell you, hey, here's how you should do. But I stopped using it. Why do you think I stopped using it? Yeah, I don't live it. And Tanya said, hey, man, you get up there every time and you tell people 210-5-7, find this balance, and you don't practice it. You need to practice what you preach. You're always talking about being a role model. And so while I'm trying to practice being a role model, I said, let me just take that out. But this is a tough thing. This is a tough thing for all of us. But you have to find the time. How many of you are carrying 6 or 10 or 20 days of use or lose on the books? You know what I'm doing the second week of October? Taking leave. And you know what we decided we're going to do? Nothing. And you know what we're going to do in February? We're going to take some leave. And we're going to go on a nice trip to whatever's left of the Caribbean, or maybe we'll go the other way to Hawaii. Certainly, I'm not the busiest person in the world. They're not the busiest people in the world, but I would argue that all of us are pretty busy. And if we take time to take care of ourselves, and if we take time to take care of our families, so can you. Again, this is a very important thing for all of us to set the example for our airmen who may be coming behind us. So make sure you take care of your families. So why does all of this matter? You know, again, I feel strongly about this idea that our airmen really are our strategic advantage. And we have to take care of them. And so I want to talk just for a few minutes about a few of our airmen. I want to talk about a few of our airmen that I've come across that are great leaders. This is Rob, Tech Sergeant Rob Dones. Rob is a surgical technician assigned, and a reservist. He's assigned to the 349th Medical Squadron at Travis. So on a recent hiking trip up in the mountains near Portland, Oregon, Rob, you know, he was with one of his friends. It was just a nice day to go hiking, and quickly realized that they were surrounded by a fire, a forest fire. He had about 140 civilians that were trapped on this mountain and needed to get down, needed to get to safety. Now, Rob could have panicked. Him and his friend could have beat feet down the mountain on their own. What do you think he did? His leadership instincts kicked in. He helped all 140 individuals. One lady had asthma. One couple had an infant child and a 2-year-old. He made sure that the formation stayed tight. He instructed his friend, his fellow airmen, to, hey, why don't you get up in the front and lead? I'll stay in the back to make sure that the slower and the sicker individuals can get. He was going up and down the line, making sure that everybody stayed motivated. Darkness fell upon them, and so they had to hunker down. They came up. They met up with a park ranger that helped them get settled for the evening. He woke everybody up early the next morning and continued to help them get down the mountain, doing the same exact thing that he had did the entire time. That's leadership. These are the types of airmen that we have in our Air Force. The next airman I want to talk to you about, and some of you may recognize this photo, this is Marcos Garcia. So you talk about being, I don't know if this is innovative or creative or just sneaky. So I was set to speak at the senior NCO induction at McGuire, Dick's Lakehurst senior NCO induction ceremony. So maybe 3 or 4 months before the ceremony, Marcos decides, hey, the chief is coming. Hey, let me find out who the POC is. Do you know anybody in the chief's office? Yep. Can you call and see if he would mind if I bring 10 airmen down for a professional development day to see him? So I'm hanging out in the Pentagon of the 1 or 2 days that I get to spend time in there. And I'm walking down the hallway. I see a bunch of airmen. So you know what I do? Hey, what's going on? How you guys doing? What's happening? And they say, oh, yes, sir, we were coming to see you. Oh, all right, well, let's go sit down. And I had a great 1-hour session with 10 airmen that Marcos, he brought from McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, the 621st CRW. He scheduled a full day, so it wasn't just me. He took them on a tour of the Pentagon. He took them around a tour of D.C. The theme of his professional development training day was mission planning and leadership. Again, these are the types of leaders that we have in our United States Air Force. Let's talk a little bit about training and how we keep them, more importantly, how we keep our airmen well trained. This is Eric. I'll just refer to him as Eric. Eric is a pro super with the 432nd Aircraft Maintenance Squadron at Creech. We had recently lost one of our aircraft at Creech, and as some of the parts were coming back, Eric decided that he was going to spend about 8 months of his spare time building a training engine, a self-standing engine so that his airmen can train on. Now, typically, when his airmen needed to train, it was about a 4 or 5 hour training session, and then another 8 to 12 hours to put it all back together to get QA to come in, fuel system support, and all the things that go into building and rebuilding engines. But because of his ingenuity, he was able to save about 8 to 12 hours per training session, not to include the time that he would typically, him and his team would typically have to wait for an aircraft to be available to train upon, because this was a standalone training engine that he built in his spare time to enhance the training opportunities for his airmen. These are the type of airmen that you have in your force. Now, this is probably one of my favorite airmen. A couple of months ago, I did another NCO induction at Altus Air Force Base. And sitting next to me was a young man by the name of Trey Bruni. Now, Trey, as you can guess, Chief, is a dirt boy. Right? And he told me how much he admired you and wanted to meet you someday, and I told him I would see if I can help make it happen. So as you can imagine, in Oklahoma, it's pretty flat and it's pretty windy. And so they were having a problem with some of the gates, some of the base gates just blowing over. And then Trey and his team would have to go out every time after these big windstorms and tornadoes and repair these gates. So Trey decided, hey, why don't we build a collapsible gate? So the wind will blow. When it starts to blow at a certain speed, the gate will collapse. And in some cases, it'll just replace itself. And in some cases, he and his team would still have to go out, but not rebuild it, just put it back up. And I thought, wow, you came up with that? He said, yeah, and your leadership allowed you to do it, to implement it? He said, yeah. Man. And he said, Chief, and I'll have you know, these are referred here in Altus in Oklahoma as the Bruni gates. This begs a question. How do we get more of this? How do we get more Trey Brunis? How do we get more Master Sergeants like Eric? You would say, Chief, you need to give us more resources. We need to invest in more technology. You need to give us more. You need to do more. The Pentagon needs to do this. The half staff needs to help us. I would say, you need to unleash them. You need to unleash them. You think this is an anomaly? There are airmen in your formations right now that have all kinds of ideas like this. You just have to let them go. You have to allow them to take some risk. You have to allow them to be creative. You have to allow them to make some mistakes. I don't imagine that the first time Trey went out to build this, that it worked exactly right. But somebody trusted him. Somebody invested in him. Somebody gave him this opportunity. You have to do the same thing. This is how we get our airmen to continue to be well trained. I like them being well led. I love them being well trained. Keeping them that way is not that difficult. What I worry about, what keeps me up at night, is how do we build more resilient airmen and families? Let me tell you about India, Corey, and little Clark Kent Horn. So Clark was born, I think, in 2015 with a very rare, I think only maybe 6 children in the entire United States have this disorder. Had 12 or so surgeries prior to turning a year old. He's 2 years old now. India is a criminal investigator with our Air Force OSI. Corey is a fire dog who's about to go on a 1-year deployment, I think, in the next week to Afghanistan. They have 3 other children. Like many folks, many individuals who have special needs children, children born with birth defects, the prognosis was not very good for Clark Kent. But India and Corey, they persevered. And it was tough. It was tough even when some of their own family members turned their backs on them. Not only did they persevere through that, they established through their experience a nonprofit organization. Because what they found was during all the time they spent in the hospital, Clark Kent, while he was obviously slow to develop physically, he was even slower to develop mentally. They found that all the time in the hospital, their other children, they mostly sat around. So in their foundation, they raise money and they provide developmental toys, developmental products to other families who have special needs children, and toys and developmental products for if they have other family members so they don't have to just sit around in the hospital. This is tough for them. These are 2 active duty airmen. India works at Quantico. They live on Andrews, right around the corner from us, ironically. So she commutes to Quantico every day, and he's getting ready to go to Afghanistan. How tough do you think that is for a family? How resilient do you think they need to be? I, for one, am extremely proud. Tanya and I had the pleasure of having dinner with them. I was able to attend one of their fundraising events to see some of the wonderful things that they're doing for other families. But just a fantastic story of resilience. Sergeant Cavazos. Many of you may have seen Sergeant Cavazos at the opening day of the Redskins versus the Eagles game. I saw General Spencer there. I was almost sick to my stomach having to go out on the Redskins field being a Dallas Cowboy fan. But I was resilient and I made my way through it. And I was pretty excited about spending some time with Vincent, who led the team out on the field. Now, let me tell you about Vincent. Vincent is a defender with the 811th Security Forces Squadron on Andrews. He, back in 2014, he was in New York. He got separated, celebrating New Year's Eve. He got separated from some of his friends. He ended up going into a hotel to look for him. He got jumped by about 6 guys. They threw him off a 6-story building. He hit an air conditioning unit that broke his fall, that probably saved his life. He broke both of his legs in all kinds of different places and 3 ribs, is battling PTSD and other issues. Prognosis was not very good. He was told that he would never walk again. As you can see clearly, he's walking, he's running. He won. I first met Sergeant Cavazos at our Warrior Games, where he won 11 medals this year. And next week, I believe it is, next month, he'll be participating in the Invictus Games. But what I like most about him, through all that he's been through, physically and mentally, man, just a great attitude. He's always smiling. He's so positive. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in attitude reflects leadership. This guy is the epitome of having a positive attitude. Very, very proud of him. This is Katie. Katie is a PA airman and a suicide survivor. She's attempted suicide before. She doesn't know why she fell into the state of depression. She just knew that she needed help. She didn't want to go get help because she didn't want the mental health professionals to tell her, oh, you'll be fine, it's just in your head, is what she thought. She said she had become so tired, so depressed, that she didn't even have the energy to continue to commit the acts of hurting herself. But she remembered talking to a friend once who went through the same thing and told her about how he went to get help and how it helped him and how successful he was. So she decided to go see someone. Now, it took her a couple of years, lots of therapy, a few different medications, but now she's doing better. How many of you have been in a situation like either one of these 3? How many of you go through it? I do. Tanya and I struggle just like any other married couple with communication and challenges. I've lost family members. I lost my mother when I first came in the Air Force during my first deployment. My oldest sister just had a stroke and is in critical condition in the hospital down in Miami. I've had times in my career when I wanted to quit. Here's where I think we can make the most money as a team, taking care of our airmen, helping them become more resilient. General Goldfein, the CMSAF, myself, will continue to work and provide resources. So we have a lot of great programs kind of in the mix right now. Preservation of the force and family for our AFSOC brethren. Airmen resilience teams in our DGSs and ACC community and our intel communities. Task Force True North, beta testing, embedding, helping resources at the group level at 4 different bases. I was out at Offutt and they raved about an MFLAC that they had assigned into the maintenance group and how critical she was to helping those airmen become more resilient. And I imagine that there are many other programs just like that in various places across our Air Force. We'll continue to work that piece. Here's what I need you to do. Commanders, chiefs, first sergeants, flight chiefs, flight commanders, these are your airmen. You're responsible for building a culture and a climate where they can thrive. You are responsible. All of you, all of us are responsible for being good teammates every day. One of the things that I actually want to change about our culture is how we look at wingman days. I know this wasn't the original intent, but in many places that I've been, many places that I've actually been responsible for creating this culture, that on this one day a quarter, or in some cases one day a year, we're going to all come together and we're going to be great wingmen. We're going to run a 5K, we're going to have a barbecue, we're going to invite Simon Sinek or Herschel Walker or whoever to come speak to us about resilience. And then tomorrow, you better get your butt back to work. How about we think of it like this? Every day is Wingman Day. Every day I'm responsible for looking to my left and my right and making sure that my teammates are doing okay. General Walters taught me, hey, why don't you just take an extra 5 seconds every day, look somebody in the eyes and see how they're doing. We owe this to our airmen. This is how we fix it. This is how we fix this problem together. One of the things that I like to leave you with is, again, just like many of you, I've struggled with various things throughout my career. In 2003, I stumbled upon a poem called See It Through by Edgar A. Guest. This poem, believe it or not, has helped me through so many things. Really difficult things, and some really simple things. I actually, no kidding, recite this poem when I'm running my PT test and I'm ready to quit. But it inspires me and it helps me get through a variety of tough times. I want to share this poem with you. See It Through, Edgar A. Guest. When you're up against a trouble, meet it squarely face to face. Lift your chin, set your shoulders, plant your feet and take a brace. When it's vain to try to dodge it, do the best that you can do. You may fail, but you may conquer. See it through. Black may be the clouds about you, and your future may seem grim, but don't let your nerve desert you. Keep yourself in fighting trim. When the worst is bound to happen, in spite of all that you can do, running from it will not save you. See it through. Even hope may seem but futile when with troubles you're beset. But remember, you are facing just what other men have met. You may fail, but fall still fighting. Don't give up, whatever you do. Eyes front, head high to the finish. See it through. Eyes front, head high to the finish. See it through. Happy birthday, AFA.
Home run.
All right, sir.
Great job. Got time for some questions?
Sure.
Absolutely outstanding job, Chief. We've got time for a few questions, and as you can imagine, we've got quite a stack of questions, so we won't be able to get through them all. But I'll try to get through just a few.
Yes, sir.
Because a lot of these were thematic. You all know we have a new retirement system upon us, And part of that retirement system involved the 401k, and there was some language in the bill about training, financial training for our troops. So the specific question is, what can we do as leaders to help our troops with their personal finances?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What can we do as leaders to help our troops with their personal finances? Here's what I would recommend. We have resources at every installation. We're working with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We're working with some of the other resources that we have in industry to provide all of our airmen the training that they need to be prepared for blended retirement and overall financial literacy and financial readiness. I guess I would caution you a little bit as commanders, as supervisors, in trying to give specific financial advice to your airmen. So again, you know, we bring people on board through our Airmen and Family Readiness Centers and other resources to make sure that we can get airmen the training they need. So just take advantage of those resources.
Okay, Chief, and I was actually in the building when they revived and changed the EPR system, so I'm interested in your answer to this as well. Do you feel the EPR stratification process is still focusing on volunteerism and off-duty performance rather than the intended primary duty performance?
Yeah, so absolutely not. I believe the stratification process. Now, can I speak for what every wing commander and let's be honest, wing command chief who really help execute these programs for wing commanders, can I speak for exactly what they look at their respective wings? I cannot. But I can tell you our stratification program for enlisted airmen, for senior NCOs, should be focused solely on the things that we value: performance, leadership, breadth of experience. Now, we still do value leadership outside of the job, outside of your primary job, but it's only a small portion of what should be considered when it comes to how we stratify our senior NCOs.
Oh, thank you. This is an interesting question. How can we best take care of our transgender airmen in a time where their career in the Air Force is unpredictable?
Yeah. So, man, I get this question a lot. And so there's a couple of different answers, I think. The first answer is, right now, our transgender airmen are still just that. They're our airmen. And until otherwise, we take care of them just like any other airman. I'd also like to answer that question like this. There was a time, and I know we had some Tuskegee airmen here, and this is the year of breaking barriers. There was a time when I couldn't serve in our United States Air Force. There was a time when my wife, who's retired, couldn't serve in our United States Air Force because we thought it would be too disruptive. So as long as they are in uniform and considered airmen in our United States Air Force, we treat them with the same level of dignity and respect that we treat any other airman.
Great. Are there any plans to capture joint credit for enlisted airmen similar to officers? Could be useful when vectoring senior NCOs.
Yes, sir. So that's actually a great question, and we have a team, and specifically we have a chief, so General Killo and Chief Ron Thompson, who is managing Big Rock number 2 for General Goldfein, the Chief of Staff, on just that. How do we better capture joint experience for our enlisted airmen? So I'll wait for them. They've done a lot of work. They've been together for almost a year now, and I think they have some great plans for how we better capture, how we better develop. Just like Secretary Mattis said, how do we get enlisted airmen in general, but specifically enlisted airmen, into these joint assignments at the right point in their career, so that they can come back and we can get them back in joint assignments and prepare them for leadership roles in the joint environment.
Great. And one last question, Chief. 2 significant things happened this week. On Sunday night, something really significant happened, and that is the Denver Broncos put a serious whipping on the Dallas Cowboys. But on Monday, the Senate approved their budget, and it included a cut to dual military BAH. Should airmen be worried about their pay and benefits?
Yeah, so I would say right now, let's not worry. So I saw that. I actually read that this morning. My first phone call was to our senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Wayne Troxell, Command Sergeant Major Troxell, who will be here this afternoon to get his take and get a feel for what we need to do, not only him, but my counterparts as the other service chiefs. I imagine that sometime next week we'll probably be over on the Hill. We'll rally first to talk about this. I think all of us are not in favor of this cut. So we'll have to talk about and develop a plan. So I would say right now, let's not worry. Leave that to me and the other service chiefs along with the SEAC, and we'll get to the bottom of it and get the right answer for you. And continue, just like with all other benefits, we'll make sure that we protect the things that are important to you as airmen.
All right, thank you so much, Chief. We really appreciate your time. I don't know how the Air Force does it. I don't know how they picked former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force and hit a home run every time. I don't know how they did that. But obviously they've done it again based on your comments here. So thank you so much from the Air Force Association. I'd like to present you a replica of the Wright Flyer.
Yes, sir. Thank you.